Hi there, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere studio. Checking our sound here. Let's go grab our friends over on Twitch. Hi, everybody. Welcome to your mostly peaceful Stratosphere studio. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. It is Monday night, the 16th of June, 2025. And here we are back in the saddle again. Good to be back. Had a interesting trip. Real different trip. The Codpiece Studio, yes. In the Twitch pre-comments, the topic of cod pieces came up, and I was asked, as one naturally would be, what codpiece I would be wearing tonight, and I decided I'm going to go with the Dorsetshire. Either that or the Manchester. I don't know. It depends. It's a mood thing. That's just the kind of crowd it is. Don't ask me to explain anything. I know nothing. I see nothing. I just simply come here and turn on the camera. So I did not bring a coffee thermos this time. I am back from a long trip and yeah, a bunch of stuff to tell you. Nothing really to show you. No, maybe one thing. Hang on one second. But let me just set this baby up a little bit. That's better. Yes, it was a mostly cod peaceful protest. Ho ho ha ha. Yeah. Anyway, that's sadly gone out of fashion. Roadrunner asked, did the Heritage Foundation record the talk? They did not, but I did. But they don't want me to release it, which is fine because I can tell you about it. And I'll tell you what, man. It was one of the strangest events I've done. Because this seminar was for this seminar was for attorneys. The Heritage Foundation is one of those stalwarts that kind of operates underneath the city, you know. I mean, it's like the electrical system or the sewer system or the water system. They're just out there fighting the good fight all the time. I don't know how many court cases they have going on at any given time, you know, but they're suing to prevent this, or they're suing to allow that, or whatever. So they've got a lot of attorneys at work. And I had rushed. I was closing the 2-day seminar at lunch, and my topic was the power of storytelling. So this would be a week ago. I did a super quick show a week ago because I was rushing to get the how LA dies video out the door, because I wanted to have that very much when I went to the Heritage Foundation, because I kind of thought it would be a little more of an upper level thing, you know. Maybe I could, I don't know, talk to donors and stuff. But what it basically was for their young attorneys on how to be, you know, better attorneys. So I got out of here late on Monday night. I had to get there. There was a reception dinner at 5 o'clock DC time, so I had an 8 a.m. flight, and I had about 3 hours sleep. So I was up at 5, I guess, 5 or 6 something. And oh yes, they like my presentation. I'm getting there. I'm setting up the story. So I'm running on about 3 hours sleep, and it had been for several days working on getting that thing out the door. But I was glad. I was really happy with it, and so I was feeling pretty good. So I get to the airport at about 7:30, maybe a little earlier, maybe even 6:45, and I find out my flight is delayed by 3 hours, which was 3 hours I could have used in bed. And then I arrived in DC. I got there at the hotel, just called just in time to say, I'm here, I can head over to the restaurant right away. Oh, we just left. Everybody just left the opening thing. No worries, I'll see you tomorrow. So I sat through 2 days of seminars on storytelling. On law. and I mean the nuts and bolts on law. Hour and a half discussion on how standing ways to prevent standing from throwing out your case. How to be prepared for standing challenge to standing. How to clean up your legal writing. Contests and workshops on precision in terms of legal, just nuts and bolts legal tips. And I had thought by the time I was end of the first day, I thought, boy, I don't know what I'm going to do here. Um, I mean, everything. It was unlike anything I'd ever done before. Because used to be Tea Party events and Republican women's lunches and stuff. But it's basically, the conservative message. And I've got these attorneys there, and they're all lawyering, and I felt like I had to give them something that had something to do with lawyering. So, so to make a long story short, I attended 2 days of this, and when I got there, this would be the day I came home, Thursday morning. Got there Thursday morning, sat there with my notepad. I'd been thinking about a lot of things, and started making notes. I have the notes, and many more notes than I usually use. I usually need 3 4 index cards, 4 5 index cards. This thing was a case. But I remember very well, and I've got the notes. So fortunately for me, on the flight over, I had met up with an old friend of mine named Mike Walsh, who's a writer. And if you don't know who Mike Walsh is, he's one of my all-time favorite people. I met him at Friends of Abe. He's a stout Irishman. He walks, with a bit of a limp now. So he's got this gigantic shillelagh, and he's got a fedora. And he and when I first met Mike, I just adored him because he'd seen some of my work, and he said, Billy, we just got to go smash these effers in the mouth. Just smash them in the mouth. And yes, Mike Walsh is greater than Matt Walsh by orders of magnitude, in my opinion. So on the flight from LA to DC, I'd been so happy. Mike was in DC when I was visiting, so we set up plans to have a drink and talk about some things. And on the way over, on the flight over, I reread The Devil's Pleasure Palace, which I'm mentioning, which is always kind of a fun kind of shock. I can't check the link number. She's not a futurist. He's an essayist and a former music critic. So anyway, The Devil's Pleasure Palace is all about Western civilization as expressed through art and culture and music, and is consistently about constantly referring to two major seminal works of art in Western culture. One of them is Milton's Paradise Lost, and the other one is the Legend of Faustus, the Faust story. And Mike takes the he takes the whole discussion 3 levels above politics, and I just saturated myself with this, saturated myself with it. And when you read him, especially when you read him as tired as I was, and just finished burning down the city of Los Angeles, it was Mike who, music critic. I texted him, I guess probably last Sunday, the day before I showed it to you, a couple hours before I showed it to you, I guess, the Burning City thing. And I just texted Mike. I said, Mike, I need a piece of classical music for a city that's burning to the ground. I need something that's heartbreaking and awe-inspiring at the same time. He said, A Funeral for Siegfried by Wagner. I said, I'll give it a try. So I went into that speaking event on a different plane than I've been in, and I don't know how else to describe it than that. I went in on a different plane. I didn't go in on a political plane. I went in on a theological plane. Um, and I don't know if I've ever been better. I was really, really, I was really good. Man, and I'll tell you why. Um, First of all, I got up there in front of all these people, and I said, it's an honor being here in Washington. By the way, I've only been to Washington 4 or 5 times in my life, and I've been to Washington infrequently enough that the sight of the Capitol building still kind of amazes me that it's real. You know, I don't know if anybody else has that experience. When you go to Washington, you see the Washington Monument, and, holy cow, But when you see the Capitol building, it's like it's real. And despite all of the shenanigans on the part of the government, which we talk about and criticize on a daily basis, when you see the Capitol, to me it's still kind of magical. It's like that's the spindle that the world turns around. I flew into Reagan, got out outside the airport, stood out in there. It was a warm day. Started breathing that Washington air. Had this overwhelming desire to spend other people's money. It's like a compulsion. Could barely control myself. Um, and and it was really hard. But anyway, um, so I went in there, and I started off by saying, uh, well, it's incredible to be here in our nation's capital, surrounded by, you know, big city attorneys. I'm just a small country screenwriter from a little town called Los Angeles, and stuck my hands in my proverbial uh, suspenders or braces, as you would say, and and then I got started. And what I basically said to these attorneys was, um, so I'm here to talk to you about story and the power of story. And I want to start by saying this. Somewhere in your life, you may know where, you probably do know where, but it's possible that you're not completely specifically aware. But somewhere in your life, all of you in this room, and some of these guys were in their 60s and 70s, big, powerful guys. I said, somewhere in your backgrounds, you saw something that made you want to become a lawyer. You saw something that made you say, I want to do that. And so I'm here talking to a bunch of attorneys, but you're not attorneys. Um, that's what you are, but it's not who you are. Um, who you are avenging angels holding a fiery sword, sent on a mission from God to bring justice to an unjust world and cast Satan into the lake of fire. That's who you are. That's what makes you do what you do. That's why you got into this business in the first place. And if you I've heard all of the seminars and all of the discussions on the nuts and bolts of your craft, and you have to be proficient in these nuts and bolts. I completely understand that. But if you don't approach every single project that you're on, every single case, every single defense, every single brief, if you don't start from a place that begins with, I am a fiery angel, I am a messenger of the God of heaven, and I am here to bring uh, justice to this world, then you are not living up to your full potential. So let me tell you a story. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a debater, and we were in the state championship uh, back in 1977, and my partner Willie Gomez was real good with evidence, and I wasn't. So I was second negative, and that meant that I went last. Yes, I was a master debater. I've been a master debater for virtually all my life. Um, and I'm a lifelong master debater. I actually used that joke, but I didn't do it here because I have too much respect for my audience, which is evaporated. So that's gone now, never to return. But what I said to them was, by the time we got to the finals of this state tournament. It was the second day. The judges were melting from boredom because all the debate is, I've got evidence, and then the other guy was like, I've got evidence to refute all your evidence. I've got a plan, I've got an attack on your plan, and all it is just these evidence cards just going back and forth like two modems. And these poor judges have to sit there and watch, probably 7 or 8 of these things over the course of the 2-day weekend, and they're just dying. You can just tell they're just dying. It's 5 o'clock on Sunday. They just want to go home. And here we are in the championship round. And so I told these attorneys what I did during what I did during this debate. And what I did during this debate is I basically picked up, went through the evidence case. We had suitcases of evidence cards, which I still use. Like this one's a little water damaged, but you get the idea. And I reached in and I pulled like 6 of these things, and I went to the front of the stage and I said, okay, look, I've got evidence cards that will show you studies and experts that will refute every single one of the claims that these people have made. But I'm not going to do that. So I put these evidence cards on the table, which was good because there was nothing on the evidence cards. They were blank cards. It was just a prop. And I sat down on the edge of the stage there. I just sat down and said, let's just talk about this and see if this makes sense, okay? And people are waking up, right? They're just like, they're waking up. And instead of me just going, this real formal behind the podium, like, flow this to the negative, it's just like let's just cut to the heart of this. Do you really believe that if this happened, if this plan takes place, do you really believe that would happen? It doesn't make sense to me. Does it make sense to you? Has anything in your life ever given you the sense that this kind of dynamic I just happened? So what I told the attorneys was, I said, I was too young to know it at the time, but that was the first time in my life when I realized that the only thing better in an argument, the only thing better than being right is being righteous. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, is righteousness and the calling to righteousness that put you in this room. You not only saw something about the law that made you want to be lawyers, there's some spark of goodness in you that made you want to be lawyers for the team of goodness and light, and not for the team that pays better and is easier. And I explained to them that we have this flaming sword of truth and righteousness, and we don't use it. We don't know how. And it's an invincible sword. And I used an analogy I'd used many times before. I said the light has agency. Light is a phenomenon. Light exists. But darkness doesn't. Darkness does not exist. Darkness is the absence of light. Darkness is the absence of agency. And I can kind of prove this to you through an analogy. Imagine that you're in the Superdome in New Orleans, let's say, and it's the middle of a moonless night in the middle of a dark night, and all the power's out, and you're in this place that is absolutely pitch black, 100% pitch black dark in there. If I walk out to the 50-yard line on the Superdome, and I take a birthday candle and I light that birthday candle, I have illuminated that arena. Now, I haven't illuminated it very much, and your eye may not be able to see it, but light is going from that candle to every single corner of this room. The left can't do that. There are no anti-candles. There's not something that you can turn on to make a place dark. There's no darkness projectors. You can't project darkness into a room. You can only block the light, which is why everything the left is about making sure that we don't get heard. It's about controlling the narrative. It's controlling access. It's suing to keep Donald Trump off of the ballot. It's appointing Kamala Harris without a primary system. All the left can do is paper up the windows to keep the light out, and they have no agency. And so since they have no agency, they really have no philosophy. They are the political philosophy of opposition. They're in opposition to everything, but they're in favor of nothing. Now, if you ask them this, they'll deny. Well, we're in favor. What are you in favor of? Well, we're in favor of social justice or whatever. Well, social justice doesn't mean anything. Social justice is a meaningless term. There's no such thing as social justice. There's only justice. Now, I'm a believer in justice. That's why I'm on the team of the fiery angels. I'm not saying there's no such thing as justice, and I'm not saying there's no such thing as injustice. But if you're saying it's social justice as an example, to have white people pay back black people in 2025 for what happened in slavery, then you're asking people who've never held slaves to pay their money to people who have never been slaves. That's not justice. The only way to achieve justice would have been to compensate the people who were harmed, namely the slaves. There were reparations paid to the Japanese who were interred, and I was in favor of that because that was actually justice. That money was going to the people who were harmed. Didn't go to their kids. It didn't go to their grandkids or their great grandkids. It was doing their best to make them whole. So I got into this whole argument about the whole thing. But I kept coming back to this fiery angel thing, to Saint Michael. And the day earlier, a guy named Jonathan Turley, an author named Jonathan Turley, gave a really, really excellent presentation for his new book called, because he's an author, he's not a lawyer. He might be both, but he's certainly an author. And he's got a new book out called The Indispensable Right, which I thought meant the indispensable right is in the right wing. No, the indispensable right is freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And he also, by happy coincidence, was operating on a plane, on a different plane. He was operating on a philosophical and moral plane, talking about the freedom of speech and so on. And I just come off of reading all of this Mike Walsh and thinking about all this stuff. And in his presentation, he showed a picture of the mural on the center of the Sistine Chapel. And it's God in his heaven, and Adam is on earth. And they're both reaching out to touch fingers, but they're not quite touching. That alone is interesting. And he said, this, what is this? What is Michelangelo trying to express here, and so on? And he didn't particularly answer it. He just went on. But I started thinking about it while he was talking, and I realized if you look at the actual painting, he's not creating Adam. He's not making Adam out of clay. Adam's already formed. A lot of people say it's God breathing life into Adam, but Adam is alive, and this touch, just from a dramatic point, this touch is not something in the past. It's something that's about to happen. It can't be about something in the past. If it were God putting life into Adam, the fingers would be touching. So it has to be something that's about to happen, but Adam is there and he's fully formed and he's alive. And coming off of Mike Walsh and his talk about Satan and the fall and all the rest of this, I said during the question and answer period, I said, I think what's going on in that moment is that this is the moment when God transmits the power of free will to Adam. That's what that is about. It's like here is free will. Mike Walsh says that that bite of the apple was the moment we became human, and the reason it's the moment we became human was because it was the moment we had the choice to do good and evil. And God's often criticized for this, why did you give them freedom of choice? Did you not know that they were gonna eat the apple and fall from grace? And somebody argued somewhere. I think maybe Milton argued on behalf of God, and God basically said whether I knew it was going to happen or not did not affect their decision, which is a fascinating thing to say, right? God saying whether or not I could see what was going to happen in the future didn't affect the choice they made. They had the choice. They made it. And it's just a small little point, but these feminists are told, oh, Christianity is just so brutal and it's so hard on women. I mean, honestly, Eve was the one who sinned. Eve could have been kicked out of the garden, and Adam could have stayed. And Adam said, "I can't live without her. I can't live without her. Rather live without her. Rather live with her outside of the garden than live without her." It's a mighty powerful statement and action on his part. So anyway, that was kind of the tone I was in, and I was on fire. And then about a third of the way, maybe halfway through, I said, okay, now I'm no longer gonna talk to you as attorneys, because I think, like I said, if you don't look at what you're doing as being an angel with a fiery sword, bringing justice to an unjust world, then you're both you're missing your real calling. I said, but now I'm going to talk to you as a storyteller. The first rule of screenwriting is don't show, tell. Now, as attorneys, you're all about tell. So this is going to be news for you. And then I talked about, but the power of entertainment as opposed to the power of law is that entertainment goes directly to your subconscious, and you don't vote based on what you think, you vote based on how you feel. And I talked about how when you go to the movies, you're hypnotized, the willing suspension of disbelief. You allow yourself. That's why you jump out of a chair if you watch a horror movie on a Saturday afternoon in Sherman Oaks Galleria or whatever, and Nosferatu comes out of the dungeon, and you have put your critical thinking aside. You know you're not in Transylvania in the 1800s, and you know that vampires aren't real. You know all these things, but you put it away, and so all of those messages go straight to your brainstem. And I did the whole thing about look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, finish the sentences, and how all of that stuff from Superman got into your head, and the Gilligan's Island got into your head, and Family Guy gets into your head. So I said, so I'm gonna follow the first law of filmmaking here, and I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen if we don't do something about our cities. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to show you how the magician does the magic. You're going to see a 7-minute video. It's divided into 3 acts. The first act is upbeat and reasonable. It sounds like a very reasonable story of the history of cities, and it makes cities sound wonderful. And it's got lovely music. It's got Aaron Copland, and all these incredible achievements, and civilization, and growing and growing and growing. That's the first act. Then the second act is when doubt and degeneracy enter the picture. When you find out that the cities are dying, and more people are leaving, and you can see the collapse coming. But the third act is where I'm going to punch you in the guts. I'm just going to hit you as hard as I can. I'm going to hit you as hard as I can in the guts, because I want your undivided attention. So there, I've shown you how the magic trick's going to work. Now we're going to do it. So we played How LA Dies, and everybody was real impressed. And the first words out of my mouth when I got up there was to say, "This is the end of the left. It's the end of them." Their ability to control the narrative is predicated on the fact that they have, for 50 years now, for virtually all of my life, had the resources and the will to make the narrative, to construct the narrative, and to keep it consistent. It's only recently, this is why woke killed the left, because the left was much better at this before they got woke. They were they were telling left-wing stories, but nobody knew they were left-wing stories. The problem with woke is that, for the left, is that everybody knows that we're not being entertained, we're being lectured to. I said, take a look at Bonnie and Clyde, man. You know, you've got the best-looking man on the planet, and you've got this beautiful woman, and they're gorgeous and they're sexy and they're running from the cops and they're playing banjo music and everybody's on their side. And Bonnie and Clyde were a pair of murdering psychopaths who just gunned down innocent people and took their money. And this inversion of the hero and this inversion of justice and morality was done so perfectly and so beautifully that everybody loved it. I loved it. And not only was the left making movies like Bonnie and Clyde, at that same time the right was making movies like Paint Your Wagon and Seven Brides for Seven Brothers and the rest of this drivel, Oklahoma, and just it's like deflavored mayonnaise. I mean, it's just mung. It's horrible. I said, but now the playing field is level. And a level playing field is the end for them. They cannot win on a level playing field. That's why they have to cheat. If we had fair elections, then they'd never win again. So I basically went in and closed this thing by saying, we're moving into this space. I'm moving into this space. This shows us what we can do. And we are now at the point where things are happening so quickly that AI in general, but AI images in particular, are exactly like atomic power was almost a century ago. AI has enormous power to multiply human potential and to give us a much brighter future, enormous potential to do this. But it also has the ability to destroy us. And my feeling is that whether you like AI or not, it's here and it's not going away. And you just have to accept that. It's here. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. And so if this power is here, then I want the good guys to have that power, and I want us to have it first because I trust us. And so I said, we're going to be moving into this space, and we're going to be telling stories, and we're going to be doing this differently than the way we've been doing it before, because we can now have unlimited budgets. I took a look at that How LA Dies thing, and I thought, if I had to shoot this thing live action, it would have been $30 or $40 million. It was easily $30 or $40 million. I can't imagine being less than that. And I just realized, just the power of this. So I closed by saying there were these interns there. I closed by saying, obviously, they brought me out here to speak to all of you, and it's a great honor, and I learned an awful lot from speaking to all of you. But I'm going to close by talking to those 9 rascals in that back row there in the peanut gallery, because the interns were sitting up against the back wall. It's you 9 people that I'm actually talking to. This technology is going to be with you for the rest of your life, and you need to master it, not just for law. They had one segment on using AI for law, but it's very, very specific, very specific. So you need to master this and so on. And I said, we are gonna this is it, folks. We're gonna whip them out of their boots. And that was the last thing I said. I got kind of choked up at the end. And one of the first questions the moderator gave me, he said, "Well, what do you recommend?" You were talking to our interns here, our young people. What do you recommend that they do? I mean, obviously, other than go home and open up Midjourney and play with it over the weekend. What do you think that they should do? I said, I think they should go home and open up Midjourney over the weekend and play with it. And And they all laughed. And to my delight, when I was finished, I walked through the room of attorneys, and everybody's packing up to get on their planes to go home. But the entire intern squad of 9 people came out and blocked my exit, and they were on fire. Their eyes were open. I understand they both sinned. I get it. There's this ongoing theological discussion here, and I get it. Yes, I understand. But they 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 were on fire, and asking a lot of questions, not just about the technology, but about the just about the storytelling, and how do you answer this, and how would you deal with that, and all the rest of it, and they were really, really motivated. So I was just very, very pleased with the whole thing, and I was very pleased with the tone. And then um, uh, the night before, uh, I had met with Mike Walsh and a friend of his who I had not met before, and they are working on a Marilyn Monroe script, and they said they saw The Burning City, and just really fascinated by it. And they said, could we make a movie starring Marilyn Monroe? I said, without question, if you have the legal rights, without question. When can we do it? I said, well, I could make the trailer for you now. Um, uh, Thank you, Lapco. I'll get to all the super chats in a minute. Um, uh, so so I said, let me give me a minute. I came back home. I came back to LA, and they said, I said, give me a scene from the movie. And there's a scene where apparently Marilyn Monroe was out in the desert shooting a movie, and she's sitting at a card table, a folding card table. I said, okay, that's what we'll do. Let me work on that. So I took 5 pictures of Marilyn Monroe from Life magazine, and the prompt was, I didn't say Marilyn Monroe because that night from the restaurant I tried to say Marilyn Monroe in the desert, and it looked very cheesy. It looked real phony, real phony. So I didn't say Marilyn Monroe because the AI has millions of different renderings of Marilyn Monroe. I just took 5 pictures of Marilyn Monroe, dumped them into Midjourney, and I said, the woman is sitting at a card table in the desert. The wind comes up and blows her hair. She looks at the camera and smiles. Um, and this is what we got out of that. For our friends in Twitch, I'm going to have to restart it a bunch of times. It's only 5 seconds. One more time. Come on. That's not too bad. Um, that's not bad. And so, so I don't know if she's here. I haven't been looking. Is Gamer Girl back in? I think it was Gamer Girl. I think that was the name. War Gamer Girl. Sorry, War Gamer Girl. Yes, she asked, did I get the email? I did, in fact, and I didn't see your prompt. I was going to call you out by name anyway. Because Wargamer Girl sent me, she and her husband sent a list of new AI tools. And I looked at it when I got back from my trip, and I'm not going to get into too many details with this because it's a little messy. But I had been under really killing stress for 2 or 3 months, just financial, killing levels of stress. and got some relief from that. And then I've been up for a lot of time working with the AI, rushing real hard to get how LA died out the door. And then that trip to Washington was extremely uncomfortable physically. It was just 3 hours of sleep on the way out, uncomfortable hotel, just living on Snickers bars, just not good. And the flight back was brutal, just so brutal. And I was so tired and so stressed. Plus, I'd been off my medication for about 5 days. And and when I got back on Friday, I was in here Friday, and I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday, a couple nights ago, and I had kind of pretty much a slow motion nervous breakdown, man. I was working with Midjourney. I was trying to do War Gamer Girl had showed me that what makes sense is if you want consistent characters, you need to show them from different angles. And there's something that looks like a character reference sheet, so you see body shots of them in an outfit and different angles on their face, different expressions. The more of these expressions that you can put into them, the better the AI is able to interpolate them and do all that other stuff. And I was trying to work with Midjourney to work on the characters from the Colonies, and it just wasn't doing it. And I just slid off the table, man. I just really took a real dive, really serious dive, and yeah, I mean, I was so frustrated. I was so burned out. I was just exhibiting some real trauma responses. It's a combination, like I said, of months and months of really intense stress, plus a week or two of intense work and timelines and deadlines and stuff. Missing posting on right angles, and then that trip just physically took it out of me. And I'm better now, but man, I'll tell you what, I spent Saturday just staring at the wall, just lying on my side staring at the wall, and other what's the word I'm looking for? Clinical behaviors. It was just boom. So if you're in that kind of space where you're, really, when primates get really stressed, they do a lot of rocking, and they do a lot of repetitive motions, and start getting into repetitive, compulsive verbal patterns, and all of that. So that hasn't happened to me too many times in my life, maybe 3 or 4 times, but it hit me hard over the weekend. So doing much better now, but it was tough. Road Rider says, but you're a fiery righteous angel. Eric Blake says neurotic. That might be neurotic, might be psychotic, not sure. But tranquility basis, when you're going through hell, keep going. So I just wrote it out. I just learned to ride it out. It's gonna, it will get better. But back to Wargamer Girl and her very kind email. There is, and this I think is one of the, I need another brain scan. I'm getting one in another 3 months or so. One of the, there's something out there called Comfy UI user interface, and it allows you to control with a high degree of accuracy, a lot higher degree of accuracy, what these various AI engines will do. Thank you, Trinity Waters. I'm doing great now. I'm at least together enough to be able to pull off the Grand Illusion. But when I looked at it, it's node based. So here's a module, and you have to plug these things in, and rendering in in CGI has the same kind of thing for textures where you have to do all these things in it, and and blueprints and things like that. And I just took a look at it, and I just said, I, I just I can't face this. I just can't face this. And it was just so, at the time, it was just so uh, overwhelming. It's like, God, doing a lot better in terms of looking at it now. Um, but I was just frustrated that I couldn't do what I wanted to do right now. I have to wait. It's going to take another 6 months or year to get to the point where it's really there. However, I found today a new rendering engine called Higgsfield, and Higgsfield's claim to fame is that Higgsfield has very, very, very precise camera controls. Wargamer Girl says it's not as user friendly as Midjourney and such, but I know you've done 3D animation on Unreal Engine, so I know you can get it. I can and I will. One of the things that it will do for you is it will do character reference sheets. So it'll take your character that you want and show you different views of the head, and then you can use sliders just exactly like the sliders on morph targets in 3D. You can make the character smile and adjust the eyes and this, all of it. So you give it all these different images, and when I drag those 5 images of Marilyn Monroe into Midjourney, and I saw how good that outcome does, I thought, man, I'm ready to go. One of the things I did that was I realized was a mistake on my part was this. So I get a little emotionally too attached or something. So here's this character that I did some animations on. This is the dad in the Colonies thing. I'm calling him Jake. Okay. So I rendered this guy out in Midjourney, and I kept tweaking him and tweaking him and tweaking him. And Paul wants to know, did I get any investor interest in that speaking engagement? No, Paul, it wasn't. It wasn't that level. I was hoping it would be a kind of a higher level thing. It was really a workshop for just for attorneys. So, but I am going to put together some rooms, and I can talk about that later. So I got this, and I got this exactly the way I wanted it. And then I would use this face, and I drag this face into Midjourney to make other images, and it looked pretty good. But every single time I brought him in, he has that helmet collar around his neck. And so I basically wrote a prompt in Midjourney. I said, a man is standing on stage. He's receiving an Academy Award on stage. And I dragged this face in there. I said he's wearing a black tuxedo. He's standing on stage. He's holding an Oscar, and he's receiving an Academy Award. And I put this guy's face in there because I wanted to see Jake in different clothes. And what it did was it put him on the stage in a tuxedo with a steel ring around his neck, and inside the steel ring around his neck was the black bow tie and the white collar. Couldn't get rid of that ring to save my life. So then I tried photoshopping it away, and I started making, just so I got the head, and then it doesn't know what to do with the borders of where his head is. So that was frustrating. I'm not saying that I'm going to use this guy, but what I did realize is that I need to do these characters in fairly neutral poses. So again, I'm not saying this is the same guy or even a better version of the guy, but just look how much higher this quality is. So this is a different version of a manly kind of guy. But the genius here is that it's in a neutral pose, and he's wearing a t-shirt. So when I put this guy into a spacesuit, it works. I happen to think it's a much more photographic look than the other ones too, because the first one was, the one you just saw of Jake, it was out on the surface of a planet. It was overcast, so he's not lit. This guy looks really real. So I took this guy. Hang on a second. I think I might have downloaded a couple of things here. Let me see if I did or not. Movies. Yeah, check this out. So here's one thing that's kind of cool. Uh, I gotta hang on a second. I gotta just download one more video here. Hang on a second. Just give me 1 minute. Um, hang on. Which one did I like? I think I liked this one. Yeah, hang on. Once again, I found I learned something interesting by accident. Uh, so take a look at this. So here's a couple of movies I made. I didn't use this guy's head. I just used a different head. But just take a look at these real quick. Yes. Okay, so it's just a walk down the beach, and then I'll bring it over to Twitch, and Twitch doesn't loop them. Right. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool image. The waves look good. Got to turn that off and on again. But the sand, right? The sand is he's kicking up way too much sand, and it doesn't look natural. And what's interesting is, before that, I did this iteration, and this is kind of cool from a sci-fi point of view, because I've got this. The exploration team goes to this planet, and this planet has very, very, very dense atmosphere, and I just accidentally, because I didn't want this much smoke, it's way too much smoke, and I told the debris to be moving real fast. But what I'm getting here is, like, this is what it might look like in on a world with 20 atmospheres of air pressure. I just think that's what I think dust would do. It looks like he's underwater because he kind of is. The medium is a lot thicker. So this is the planet where they have these gigantic creatures that are 100, 200 feet tall, because it's got a lot of density, a lot of buoyancy, and low gravity, and it looks kind of like he's walking underwater. The way the dust flows looks very much like dust underwater, sand underwater. So I don't know. I just thought it was cool. But what I am capable of doing now, after the Maryland thing, is I'm going to take. Come on. I'm going to take that still, that one, and hang on, YouTube, that one, and I can rotate this guy around on a pedestal, and get a 365 degree view of him. Higgsfield says they'll do that. Did Higgsfield do that, or did Higgsfield not do that? Let's see. Hey, Higgsfield for the win. I just started playing with Higgsfield just 10 minutes ago, before we started. All right, so check this out. This makes me happy. Hey, here's my first. This makes me very happy. So take a look at this, and Wargamer Girl will appreciate this. If all I have to give the AI is just the front view of his face, and then I ask him to turn around or something, right? It's going to make its best guess, but its best guess is going to be wrong. So what I did in Higgsfield was, I took this still, and I said, put this guy on a 360, I said 365 before, 360 degree turntable. Okay, check this out. And so, yeah, Oops, where'd he go? Here he is. Ready? All right, here he comes. Nah, I'm learning, man. I'm slow off the blocks, but even I can figure out things eventually. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take individual frames of this, right? Just grab a frame so that the AI knows what this guy looks like from every different angle, and then I can take that frontal view, that view, into one of the pieces of software that Wargamer Girl showed me, and I can make him smile, wink, open his eyes, close his eyes, get all the expressions, and basically get, is it called a Lua, I want to say? A term I hadn't heard before. But basically it gives you, on one image, it gives the AI everything it needs to know in order to reproduce this guy accurately. And they want you to have different lighting on him too. So I'm feeling I'm back to feeling happy again. And Alora, not Alua, Alora. So what I suspect I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take this high resolution picture. We'll take one guy at a time. I'm going to take the super high resolution picture of his face, right? I'm going to get a high resolution picture of the clothing in a T pose, and I'm going to Photoshop his face onto those clothes. And then I'm going to generate all these different versions so that I can drag that into Midjourney or whatever the case may be, and it will not only know how to accurately reproduce him, but it'll also know how to identify him. And so that you can take him in, put him in a scene, and take another person that you've done this for and put them in the scene, and over time, it begins to learn. So, I've just done 2 renderings on Higgsfield, but man, I'm impressed, dude. So, again, it gets better and better and better and better, and various softwares will do the lip sync and stuff. Around I found a guy on YouTube who specializes in this kind of thing, talks a lot about Comfy UI and how these things are made, and I'm sitting there I'm like a dog watching TV. I kind of get the general drift of what he's talking about, but ultimately it really is just a question of doing it frame by frame. I've got a pretty powerful PC over there, but I like the comfort of being here, and I guess this is really, I've got some real processing power on that PC, so I guess it's all, I got to go back to the Windows world over there, and I'll just put that computer down here and I'll just switch the monitors, I guess. Yeah, so it's exciting. I'm coming off of that. I'll just finish up the speech, then we'll get to the questions, and we'll do all the questions. So, hang on. They had a term that I'd never heard before. It was control. It wasn't a control rig. It was a control something or other. But basically, you can just have video. I can just have video of me walking against a wall, sit down in a chair. The AI will analyze this. It will put together essentially a bone structure, which would be the bone structure control net. Thank you. I think it's a control net. And so it can analyze it as bones. It can analyze it as outlines. It can do all these different things and so on. And so the motion capture suits are obsolete, and good riddance to them. I didn't get very much use out of the ones I had, but it's just pretty clear now. Yeah, Bone Rig is one of the control nets, and there's like an outline control net, and there's like a shadow density control net, and different ones are better for different purposes. This is just stuff I've picked up in the last day. So there are so many different companies out there. There's so many different companies that are doing different things, And one of the things that I get the impression from Comfy UI is that Comfy UI is set up to take advantage of all of those, where they'll put a node in, it'll send it to this particular piece of software to do the 4K upres because it's got the best one of those, and then it'll send it over here to do the the lip sync or whatever. So yeah, I just I would just like to be able to dedicate not completely full time to this, but a reasonable amount of time. So so I'm going to try to put together a couple of rooms. I went out and raised some money for the virtual presidency, uh, and that allowed me to work on that, and that's kind of what I want to do with this. Um, yeah, Lapco says don't scan yourself. You're at that age where you have to cry in the corner for 30 minutes when you see the finished product. I know it's horrifying. Um, as long as it captures the hair correctly, that's all I care about, frankly. Yeah, and then and Kickstarter is an option too. Here's the thing about where we are right now, as of this instant, right? The thing that's got me so excited now is that as of this instant, I told Mike I couldn't make his Marilyn Monroe movie right now, but I could make his trailer for it right now. Um, you can now make the kind of sizzle reel that really, really sells it. Just I think just some of the things that I've done already really sell it, and yeah, I can do it with all the free time I have. Thank you. Uh, and by the way, War Gamer Girl, thank you for going to all that trouble, and you and your husband, and sending that, because I looked at every one of those things, and when I first looked at every one of those things, I was really at the bottom. I was just at the bottom of. I had no emotional reserves left, and I was looking at it, and I was just like, "That's so cool." I think I'm going to burst into tears again. It's like, oh, that just looks so cool. There's in no way I'm out of drive space. I'm just out of drive space. Um, you know, there you go. So, Paul, I tried to answer that earlier. I didn't get any investor interest in DC because there were no investor level people there. They were, they were. It was a seminar for staff lawyers, basically. So, yeah. So I need more RAM, and I need more SSD space. So, and I gotta dump some files, I reckon. So maybe I'll forget where I grew up or something and be able to handle Comfy AI. Just have to delete some stuff, because that's what it feels like. But anyway, I think what I'll probably do is take that PC and just pave it. Make sure I saved everything from the Major Mace Mattingly and stuff, and just pave it, because it's a little kludgy, and there you go. So let me see about the P7 2017 is trying to flex here. He tells Wesley Bruce he once paid $286 for an 8 GB hard disk drive. I once paid $1,000 for a 1 GB Maxtor Panther disk drive, which is about the size of a loaf of bread and weighed about as much as a microwave. 1 GB. The attendees loved the Death of the Cities video, but the interns lost their minds over it. So that was good. They were real excited, and that made me real happy. So, okay. So let me see what I got here. We got a Timeline Junkie Films super chat for $5 saying, "Do you have scripts already for the Colonies?" I have outlines. Also, check out a scene from your description of Aurora that I made a few weeks back in the email. I saw that too, and thank you very much for that. And I'm changing a lot of kind of the style of the ships, and make them a lot more modular and a lot more Discovery looking. So there's that. Let's see what else we got. Lacko92, good work on the Death of the Cities. You put all my $1.23 donations to good use. Two really good AI channels are AI Fascinated and AI Retro Rewind. Retro futurist vids with some great jazz soundtracks. Let me just go and before I go any further, let me just go and subscribe to those, because it's kind of cool to see. 1 second, sorry. Subscribed, and then and I love it when they do the 1950s version of Alien, you know, and the voiceover is really the key to that thing really working. Everybody is talking about this now. It is the hot topic all across society. You know, everybody's talking about AI and AI music videos, and yeah, okay, sure, why not? But I've got a vision, and I know what I'm. And nice thing about having a vision is you know when you're on target. So, got them. Thanks. Got them subscribed. Um, uh, so yeah, and the nice thing about Comfy UI, as people are pointing out, is it's open source. So some guy will come along and write some module or something that saves you having to do 55 steps, and you just apparently just drag it in and drop the workflow into Comfy UI and get it done. I really, what I'd like to do, I don't think I'll have time to do, but what I'd like to do would be able to take 3 days and just sit, and come here one Monday morning and just start with tutorial number one and just bit by bit just build up the skill sets. I'm just going to have to do that one way or another. So, yeah. Lepker 92, Bill, you wonderful bastard. How the heck did you manage to be the sound engineer for Newsom's national address? I recognize your tech work instantly. Well done, my man. Was it that bad? I had heard his national address was terrible, but I was traveling and I didn't get to see it. But I'm assuming it was the worst produced national address on the internet. So it wasn't my work, but I'm glad they found somebody of comparable quality, because that guy's a total D-bag. Wesley Bruce again. U.S. governments have paid millions in reparations to African Americans both before and after the Civil War. It created Liberia and Monrovia, and it created universities for African Americans. Yeah, that's. I'm sorry to have to run these super chats backwards, but it is like a little bit like a time to travel in here. So if I missed one, I'm sorry, and I will try and get them out. The sound cut out. Epic. Epic. Haha. Serves him right. Loser. I saw The Most Condescending Man in the World. It was Neil deGrasse Tyson. It was hilarious. Yes, it was great. He's the most condescending man in the world. What a loser. 12 questions tonight? Oh, that's not going to happen. So we got the leftovers from last week. That's just not going to happen. I'm just going to have to... I wanted to, but it's just... I'm not... It's not... So, let's see what we got here. I do kind of like the faster website, though. All right, let's see what we got. We got an Eric Blake, we got an Ian Nolan, we got a Roadrunner, we got a Capital G Geek, we got a Dragon Tail, cool. Steve Young, Marusha Dark, Road Rider. Marusha Dark, well, we're certainly not going to do doubles. We got a Bob Knife, we got a Jacob Belchak, we got another Eric Blake. I'll see how fast I can basically chomp through these things. Okay, I'll just start with I'll get as many as I can, and we'll see. Starting with Eric Blake here. Tonight, the case of the fatherly flaw. Hey, Bill, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you for the answer last TSS Q&A. I figured at the very least I'd get good tips on character development from a constructive critique, and you didn't disappoint. Also, as if this were a movie studio, I'd give you Major Mace Mattingly free of charge. Thank you. All that aside, Bill, I'm highly curious. You've talked a lot about preventing the young characters from being Mary Sue or Gary Stu, so let's turn the focus to the father. What flaws does our main protagonist of the family have to prevent him from being a Gary Stu father who's always right or otherwise? What mistakes is he prone to, and what does he need to work on? I think Jake's probably. I hadn't really thought about that. Um, Not that it didn't need to be there, but I never given it much thought. But I'll tell you something, Eric. The second I read that question, the instant I read that question, I just knew the answer, and the answer is his temper. That's his. That's his number one problem. Is his temper. Um, he he gets angry easily, and and I do too, and and so I write what you know. Um, and I've seen the effect it has on Natasha, and it's heartbreaking. When I don't I don't I don't believe I've ever taken anything out on her, but like directly, like, but uh, I have lost my cool about other things, and it's not a pleasant thing to be around. And I'm going to have Jake handle this the way I handle it, which is in the moment you're too filled with pride and pride to apologize. You know you're wrong, but you're not going to. Well, first of all, you don't know you're wrong. You know you're wrong about 20 minutes later. That's when it begins to dawn on you that you're wrong, but you're still got your blood up and you've done this and so he'll end up apologizing 2 or 3 days later. Um, and you know, uh, his wife Lisa is she understands him and just lives with it, and he has to process a lot of guilt. You know, that's I think that's one of the I think it's one of the biggest thing uh, about people with temper issues is that they have to process a lot of guilt, and and I think she's above reproach, and he knows that she's above reproach, but I think on some level he yes, of course, she 100% sees him for who he is beneath the anger. Um, One thing I learned about women over the course of my life is as long as you're not, you know, scaring them real bad. Um, I've had a lot of women say, you know, it's kind of hot when you're angry. Um, Needless to say, he's never raised a hand to her or anybody else. If he did, she'd split. But I think he probably I think he's probably always worried that, you know, that he just married up and that he's not good enough for her, and and uh, and when he has these outbursts, he's thinking, well, now I've done it, now I've done it. But she understands why he gets angry. He gets angry because he's an avenging angel. He's just a good man. And I got to tell you the story. I completely forgot about the story. It happened last night. Um, and she understands that when he gets angry at injustice, and he gets angry at gross incompetence, and especially at crime. He cannot tolerate crime, embezzlement, fraud, shoplifting. He just won't put up with it. Um, Lady Jane says, but she always forgives, and so does he, right? Because she's not perfect either. Um, yes, I think her flaw might be that you know, I'm having a hard time thinking of any flaws for her right now. Obviously, she's got to have them. Um, but since this thing is the center of the colonies. I've got 5 different storylines that happened during the colonies. 90% of my total thinking about the colonies has gone into this particular storyline, the homesteading storyline, because I think it's the one that's the most important example for families. So, Dad has a temper, but Dad is a good man, and and I think maybe her um, see, I don't want her to be um, cowardly. uh, she can't be, she's a frontier wife. I think probably Jake feels that she maybe tends to go to the worst case scenario when things go bad, just immediately goes to the worst case scenario, I think. She's the music teacher, yeah. um, and I think maybe she could be a little bit meticulous. She can't be nagging, um, but she can't be. I mean, I really don't want her to be nagging, and I certainly don't want her to be neurotic. And she's brave. She's courageous. Um, but she may be a little meticulous, maybe. You know, maybe a little bit OCD. Seems like it'd be a good. Uh, yeah, in fact, a little bit of OCD would be a good quality for her to have on the frontier, because nothing is ordered on the frontier. Is she an introvert or an extrovert? Well, I think she needs to be an extrovert, because I think he's the introvert. um, I think she. I think you know um, it's sometimes I think that maybe one of her qualities might be that she you know how infuriating it can be when somebody is like too good. um you know what I mean? Like they never, they're so well controlled, but that they, that they never, you just want them to, to do something dumb, or something, you just kind of want them to, that I think that's probably the dynamic, is that it's probably frustrating for Jake that she never loses her temper, that even when she's angry, when she's really angry, she's just got it, she's just got it under control. And I think he really wants, uh, really would like it better if she were, a little more, I don't know, something. Uh, the the kids, the 2 kids changed. Uh, yeah, John Pershing says OCD can be a survival trait, particularly in hostile environments. Did you check the helmet seals before you cycled the airlock gear? Um, yeah, she's. I'll tell you who I can't stand, um, and that is Peggy Hill. Peggy Hill just made my skin crawl in King of the Hill. Just made my skin crawl. And I want to stay away from that. Um, she's clearly, she's clearly the better. She's clearly, on one hand, she's clearly the better half, but on the other hand, this guy Jake he's just a frickin'. I mean, the guy's such a stud. I mean, he's a big, strong, tough, loyal guy, and he's smart, and he works his tail off. I don't know what else you can ask for, really. You put up with a lot for that. Hey, Clay, good to see you, buddy. Um, and and so that the daughter starts out as um, uh, really bitter and cynical and angry for the entire season. She just spends the entire first season moping and bitching and complaining about things. Just she just really, really, really angry all the time. And Will is all curiosity and excitement, and he's he didn't particularly have a lot of friends at school, and he loves hanging out with his dad. And his dad, is really, lets him drive the Rover, and really treats him like he's a grown up. And I think that by the time we get to the end of season one and the beginning of season two, the daughter starts to develop some interests in things, and she starts to soften. But what what happens is I think Will actually goes. I think he actually goes the other way. I have thought about the idea that Will, this boy wonder, Will Robinson, is really Will Robinson, uh, actually dies of a drug overdose in like season three or something, just right out of left field. He just was just curious, and he just experimenting. That would be a bit of a shock. Uh, and But on the other hand, I really really like the character. But it's got to be yeah, space drugs. Um, it's a possibility. It seems like if he's going to be this brilliant kid who's is looking for this, he's not going to be a Wesley Crusher by any means. Uh, I think one of the things that I think the thing that I'm going to give Will is I think he's just going to be really sharp tongue. I just find that dynamic to be fun. That kind of Danny Bonaducci and in the Partridge Family kind of thing. That kind of just quick. It's just quick. Steve Young says, "Will Dad go vigilante?" I think if Will dies of an overdose, I think Dad runs for sheriff, becomes the law enforcement officer. Um, Will is an introvert, and and Claire is an extrovert, although she's so bitter, uh, and she has no one to talk to. She's really the tragedy. I mean, the other three are fine out there. She just loses it, man. Um, uh, they, but yeah, I think temper for Jake. He doesn't. He can only skin his knuckles so many times before he starts smashing things. Um, but the one thing he really cannot handle is Jake's biggest problem socially, and biggest embarrassment to Lisa and all the rest of it is that he does not suffer fools gladly, and he never has. If you're gonna, he expects you to do your job. He expects you to live up to your word. He's got very high standards, and one of the reasons he's so angry all the time, I think, is because he doesn't live up to his own standards, and it drives him nuts. Um, so, there you go. It's a start anyway. Ian Nolan. Hey, Bill, cool stuff with the Colonies pitch you made. The one thing I know you intend, but I don't feel was shown. I think the biggest thing it needs is fleshing out is the systemic bureaucratic tyranny that connects the elegant sailboats with the industrial salvage yards. Yes. Regardless of where you are on Earth or even just off it, the bureaucracy needs to be pervasive. Maybe the sailors need to be signing their waivers every time they go out. Um, yes, it needs to have that kind of Brazil kind of vibe. Terry Gilliam's Brazil, or 1984 um, kind of, you know, it's just a drag on everything, and they're generally very petty people. Eric says, back to the last question, something brilliant in the chat for the father-daughter dynamic. She has the exact two flaws as her dad, temper and pride. That goes a long way towards neither one being unsympathetic, and the daughter's so much like Jake for better and worse. Yes, so and as the series goes on, they become very, very close. Um, very close. Because after 2 or 3 years, uh, Claire realizes that her father saved her life, and that she gave him a lot of grief for it, and so that that kind of happens. Yeah. So Will and Dad get along great because they're on the same team. She's just in rebellion, rebels just against everything that he says, and can get a little lippy, and he doesn't like that very much, and that kind of accelerates that kind of dynamic. Um, uh, but I think he's a whiz kid, and that's just thought just flew into my head. Uh, well, Eric says, especially when Will dies, Claire can go, "That could have been me," and I was actually thinking what Claire would have said is, "That should have been me." Um, uh, but I was thinking about a flaw for Will, and I thought, maybe epilepsy or something, some kind of, or maybe even schizophrenia. The kid's he's just too brilliant, and some of this stuff is onset later in life, and he goes from being like a really, really, really brilliant kid to being a brilliant kid who's getting a little obsessive, and a little um, compulsive, and maybe even starts hearing things. So maybe that would be the reason why he basically just uh, falls, because he is the golden boy, not Sheldon Cooper. I just can't stand that guy. I just can't stand that character. I can't stand him, Sage Crouch. I just want to smack old Sheldon and young Sheldon. I just want to just smack them. Um, uh, I think he's got I think he's got a he's not a cool kid. Um, yeah, that's a great point too. Gumman says when Will dies, Claire grows up. Yeah, he's not a cool kid, but he's got he's got that he's got that kind of Anthony Michael Hall kind of thing where it's like, yeah, he's kind of a nerd, but he's working it. You know, he's just kind of working it. He's just quick. Um, so Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka says schizophrenia emerges late teens to early 20s usually. Yes, Abe will. And then then there's you lose a kid and you have all of this guilt, and sometimes in your grief you lash out and you say things, and um, do you. Unlimited Hornet Works says add a second son to the mix. I'm thinking about that actually. The ages work out just about right. They may, you know, they may. Well, I'm not gonna make it 3 kids, but maybe after Jake and Lisa get through their grief, or maybe because of their grief, they decide to try again and get a uh, kind of a replacement. That can go badly sometimes. Um, I haven't decided anything really, Sage Crouch, but I've been playing along with it, and it seems like a good beat. Um, and there's something really terrible about uh, growing up in the shadow. Uh, Now, Quibo says the family needs 20 kids, and that's a statement actually that needs to be made. Um, you know, maybe they just adopt. You're going to have a lot of orphans out there on the frontier. Um, but yeah, that you know, if they were to have a second son after he dies at 14 or 15 or something, um, then then that kid has to grow up in the shadows of the departed golden child. That's a you know, not as smart as Will was. He's not as not as friendly, not as you know, it's not as affectionate or whatever. Um, but yes, we also need to have bigger families. I mean, that's really the main thing. Could they get the same kid back through genetic? Yes, that's another question too. Um, they probably could clone him. I think that's an interesting question, frankly, um, because if you were to clone him, and it's that I don't see that being any problem at all in terms of the story. It's an interesting thing because the thing about cloning him is they could get the kid come back look exactly the same, just exactly the same, but it's not the same kid. Um, yeah, I think cloning is a little gross too, Lady Jane. I think it's just a little, but they're crippled by grief, man. Um, so lots to think about. Anyway, we're not moving through the questions super fast here, so let's see what I can do. Um, so I did get to the yes. So the administrative state needs to be everywhere, and checkpoints, and um, uh, in areas now with high crime areas, even in we live in a very low crime area, but there are certain things in the drugstores that are behind the little plastic things, the stuff that gets lifted the most often. Now I'm seeing things like in inner city supermarkets, they have canvas sheets that just show you the products. It's just a photograph of the cereal boxes, and there's nothing there to take. And you basically, I don't know what you do with it. You scan something or whatever, and then they hand it to you at the counter once you paid for it. And somebody said, I saw a post on Facebook where somebody said, "Well, thanks a lot, man. Now I've got to have somebody come and open up a plastic lock container so I can get a bag of Doritos." That kind of world is that, and this explains. I think this explains the main reason why the family ends up moving off world, and uh, why Jake ends up working so hard, because this kind of bureaucratic red tape offends him. It offends him that idiots are telling him what he has to do. He just it just sticks in his craw, and he can't bear it. And older he gets, the less he's willing to put up with. So that makes him rebellious, and that lowers his social credit score, and that limits his options. And he can't buy a beer now unless he goes and votes, or something like that. So anyway, there's a lot of material there, and I'm looking forward to being able to really dig into it. It'd be so nice to be able to dig into it, full time. That'd be really, really, really good. Um, Roadrunner, greetings, friend Bill. Hello, Roadrunner. All this research you've been putting into AI and the renewed work on the colonies, has story mechanics been put on the back burner? No, it's been waiting. We are now the website is in the fix the plugin stage, so we got the speed up. That was important to me. Um, we have not been able to. The website had been slowing down because of a defective plugin. Not defective; it's just old. Every time they update WordPress and every time they update Recurly and so on, there's drift, and there comes a point where this plugin which we had built, our plugin, uh, basically does this. When you become a member, you enter your name, um, your email address, uh, credit card information, which we don't get. We never see it. That is a embedded thing that goes directly to a bank called Recurly, which does monthly charges. And so basically what this plugin does is when you become a member, it adds your name to the membership roles, so it unlocks the members only features of the website. It sends your uh, credit card information securely to Recurly for the monthly billing, and it puts your name on the MailChimp mailing list. So there's that. just have to answer this. Don Vickery says, wouldn't he find the same politics in the colonies? No, that's the great thing about the colonies. The colonies, I went to Texas just before I met Natasha, I went to Texas in 2015 for Thanksgiving, and had a friend there. And I spent 2 days just walking around saying, they let you do that? They let you do that here? You can just shoot skeet out your backyard into the river? Yeah. Skeet's made out of bird food or fish food or whatever. It's like, yeah, you just go out there with your shotgun and the neighbors don't call SWAT on you? No. You have a bonfire? Yeah. They let you do that? Uh-huh. They let you do that? Yeah, that's what the whole thing, man, is the colonies are like, that's the whole thing. You are just free. I went to Pattaya, which is a resort town in Thailand, in 2012, and I was there for about a week. And I saw what real freedom is, and it's got its ups and downs, but there are no traffic laws there. Just traffic just diffuses through intersections. I can't describe it if you haven't seen it, and it's terrifying unless you've done it a lot. But there's electrical cables just hanging down everywhere, and every single step you take is, you just look around, you see 5 OSHA violations for every pace you take, and they're cooking steak strips on the curb while these little, tuk-tuks and mopeds are going by, and they're spewing, their gasoline fumes all over these little, skewers of meat, that you buy, and it's like, part of it is like, wow, man, this is really dangerous and weird, and another part of it is like, oh, so this is cool. So I can hang on to the back. A tuk-tuk is it's like a small, like a Toyota pickup truck, where the bed is cut away, and it's replaced with rows of seats and a metal roof in case it's raining. And so everybody just hops in there, and they've got a step on the back and a back platform, and you can just jump on that tuk-tuk, and you hold on for dear life, man. And there's nobody there about to pull you over and tell you need to be wearing a helmet or you need to be strapped in, and none of that. It's just plain freedom. And it was Pattaya, and it was I loved it. I thought it was great. It was like being a kid again, riding in the back seat of trucks or back seat of a station wagon with a sleeping bag kind of laid out, and you just hope you don't hit anything. So you get that. So anyway, no. So story mechanics is part of the sales pitch. So that's where I went into the plugin. You can only get people to come to your site once. If they come to your site and they say, shut up and take my money, and you can't take your money, it's the end of the world. So we're still chasing down the functionality of that, but it's almost there. And then we bring story mechanics into the mix and into the pitch as well, to reach people in a different way. So it's I suppose it has been put on the back burner, but it's not. It's not like it's been, put away. It's just I've got. Bill, you look really strange. It's hard to listen to you when you look this bad. Oh, thank you. Had a rough week, so, and I'm overdue for a haircut, so that's probably 2 of it. But yeah, stress will do that to people. Thank you for saying so. Sincerely, I really mean it. It's like it's a real friend that makes a comment like that. You look marvelous. The thing of it is, double X's, I'd rather look good than feel good. Let's see. Capital G Geek, greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. Hello, I was there not too long ago. From Thursday's show, a pet peeve of mine is humanoid robots. It serves no purpose to have a humanoid robot operating something with controls meant for people. The robot should be integrated into the device if that's the normal operating mode. Completely agree. It's pointless to have a self-driving car that's got a steering wheel and brake pedals that a robot gets in. Yeah, I completely with you on that. Medical battlefield recovery robots shouldn't be humanoid, but look like coffins on treads. I completely agree there too. I actually had a reference for the robot that was very, very non-humanoid, but uh, um, Midjourney wouldn't take it. But I agree with you completely. On the AI imaging front, Black Pigeon Speaks thinks that the AI e-thoughts will destroy OnlyFans for most creators. Good. Good. Um, because I, you know, I understand. I understand that it's tough to be, 18-year-old, 20-year-old woman, and and be working at Starbucks or Target or something for $9 an hour when they could be making, in some cases, literally some of these girls are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, and one or two of them are making millions of dollars a month. Um, so it's that it's hard for somebody to resist that temptation, especially when you're a teenager and you don't realize that there are lifelong consequences that come with this. So. I'll tell you this: some of the somebody mentioned some of these AI sites. AI can generate women that are more beautiful than biological women, just in terms of obviously they're just physically more beautiful than you possibly can be if you live in the real world. So there's that. It goes on to say, when you launch your next membership drive, we'll be encouraging forum use for more than just stratosphere questions. Yes. You mentioned that you'd be learning Blender. Good luck. It has more of a learning clip than a learning curve. I need to do very simple things in Blender. I really just need to. I probably can do them in 3D Studio, which I know pretty well. I want to. I want to use CGI for all of the tech. I want the rover to look a certain way. I want, and it's got to have a 3D space. So one of the things that's looking like and I suppose all of this will be solved. The sales pitch I saw for Higgsfield, which I just played with just earlier for the first time ever, the sales pitch for Higgsfield was, in Higgsfield you can move the camera a foot to the right, which may sound like not a big deal, but it really, really is. So there's that. But I do want to make the ships a lot more, centrifuges and fuel tanks. I just think I resisted it, and I can justify having certain ships that are. I'm talking about the magnetic field control of artificial gravity and things like that. But yeah, I'd like to spend just a month just building spaceships. I just would love that. Also, there's a new AI Substack discussing the uses of AI for producing music, stories, images, and videos. You might be interested in. There's a link. Thank you. I'll take a look at it. Thank you very much. Hey, here we go. Dragontail. Cool name. Hey, right below Virginia again. Hey, Hiya from North Carolina. Population 1. If we're approaching agelessness, medicine, or technology, is a declining birth rate a bad thing? I've never really heard that put quite that way. Yes, the declining birth rate is a bad thing because the experience of children is essential to mental health. Children are essential for mental health, and having immortals, may solve the problem of or slow down the problem of vacancies, but the longer you live, the more unchildlike you become, and if I had a choice of a colony that had 100 people in it, and 60 of them were children, versus 100 people and 5 of them were children and everybody else was essentially an immortal, I just find lots that could go wrong with that second colony. So there's that. Number 2, not all places in the U.S. are below replacement rates. Red states are still over 2.1, blue states below 1.7. To me, this suggests the declining birth rate is not permanent, but will level off or increase over or reverse over time. To get the birth rate up, you need to get the testosterone rate up, and to get the testosterone rate up, you're going to have to get the crisis rate up. That's why I've been so pleasantly surprised by the faces that Midjourney is producing for men. They're really strong faces. They're manly faces, which means they've got actual testosterone in their system instead of estrogen and plastic byproducts and soy. So that I like a lot, and you can't put too high a value on that. If the people on the frontier look like men, and the people back on Earth and the bureaucracies look like beta males or gamma males or whatever, just if they look like that, then you're going to get young people on your side right away. Master Chief is not the surrogate father for 30 million kids for nothing. They can't. It can't be well. I almost said it can't be a colony full of Marlboro men, but then I realized, well, why not? They don't have to be handsome, but they got to be. They got to be strong. And let's not forget, they're self-selecting, right? I mean, they're not shipping colonists out there against their will. They're self-selecting. So yeah, every Dave Real Estate Dave Reel's Area 51 says every bureaucrat on earth looked like Brian Stelter. Man, I just couldn't agree more. There's something so punchable about that face, that smile, that where you see every single tooth he ever had, and it's just creepy, man. It's creepy. It's really, 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 really creepy, and he comes off that way. And I love watching Mark Dice do the voice too. So there you go. So let me see if I can get through these questions here as I'm starting to fade a little bit. Back to the same question. I think agelessness is coming just at the right time to colonize other planets, especially as boarding a generational ship becomes boarding a freakishly long, potentially boring ship. Somebody who just flew 5 hours in a 737, 757, I should say. Yeah, the idea of being cooped up for years inside of a 737 doesn't seem like. I think I'd rather just check out. But yes, I think one of the qualities of this society is that anti-aging medicine or anti-aging therapies are there, and they're going to be expensive, and that's going to generate a lot of social tension. It's one thing to say, I hate rich people because they got nice cars. It's something else entirely to say, well, I hate rich people because they live forever, and I got to die. I can see that being a real problem. But I think, 150, 160 years old is completely doable, and it solves a lot of problems from a pure story point of view, for the founders especially. Although, bears mentioning that the founders a lot of those guys were in their 20s, and 20s and 30s, and old men were in their 40s in the founding fathers of the U.S. So they can't be old men; they just have to be men of means who don't need it. They don't need this revolution. They don't need it to take. There you go. Yeah. So I haven't given it much thought, to be honest with you, Dragon Tail, but it's a really, really cool thing. He says, P.S. You mentioned my boat avatar. Thank you, Bill. Yes, I live on that boat just inside the North Carolina coast, Dragontail has been my internet handle since 1995, and AOL, America Online. I remember AOL. I miss it. I miss AOL. I miss the excitement of that. Logging. You've got mail. That guy died recently. Just a month or two ago, I remember hearing that the AOL guy died. File's done. You've got mail. Goodbye. Yeah, that guy. Steve Young, good evening, Bill. Are you safe from the LA riots against ICE? Yes, I am. I've had the incredible joy of having lived through a number of large riots, not just in Los Angeles, but I lived in Miami for the Liberty City and the Overtown riots. I was in Miami for those riots. I was here for Rodney King. I was here for George Floyd. And all of those, the two in Miami and the two prior to this one, were, the impression I got was that the mob was just wanted to kill anybody that they saw. This is much more confined. It's in a much smaller geographic area. It's really just a couple blocks of downtown, and there doesn't seem to be. I haven't been following it super closely, to be honest with you. Let me put it to you this way: if it weren't for the news, I would not know that there were riots going on in LA. I would have no idea. I knew for a certain fact they were going on during Rodney King, but no. Thank you for asking, but we're just we're doing just fine. Okay, so Missionary Road Rider, another Missionary. Bob F. Jacob Bill. It's just not going to happen, man. Gosh. I'm just trying to figure out which one to take here. Road Rider. Today, June 11th, I posted a blog on your site about AI and authenticity. Bill, make this make sense. For a couple of years, you talked of authenticity and how firewalls and afterburners with you in front of CGI backdrops, your natty suit and tie, performing well thought out and practiced readings of your own routines. Well, that was now inauthentic. Can't do that anymore. People only want authenticity. Same with trifectas, right angles. Only backstages are now authentic. Right angles are now too scripted. We've been treated to a month of TSLs with you in your bowling shirts, sitting down hot talking nonstop, many times rambling. That's somehow authentic. And all of a sudden, AI Mason crew burning LA, soldiers through the years, nothing human, nothing authentic, all CGI, AI scripted and planned. The question is, are you entering a stage when you need to find balance between the real, the actual, and the fake so that you can succeed and grow and deliver your good messages to more people? Good question. Question 2, are the prompts to get these little vignettes the real story or the real screenplay? I find it interesting to read what you had to write in the prompts just to achieve these images. I'll do the second one first. One of the things I said to the young interns when I told them to go play with Midjourney was that a lot of you are lawyers and you'll be good at this because the AI needs very precise instructions. Just give you one example, I would say the city of Los Angeles is burning in the background, and all right. And I would do that. The LA skyline is burning, and I would write out the prompt, and it would do everything in the foreground was great, and then in the background you would see the LA skyline and everything around it is burning. And I said all the buildings are on fire. The buildings are being gutted by fire. I kept adding and subtracting, trying to get them to burn the buildings, and I couldn't do it. And I realized that the AI heard me say the LA skyline, so it kept showing me the LA skyline. And so what I had to do is I had to take out the LA skyline burning and replace it with the LA skyline is obscured by smoke and fire, and then it burned downtown. So the prompts are pretty commonsensical, and to be honest with you, a lot of them were I just plain reiterated the prompts again and again. I'd do a description of the city burning, and then I would just run it a bunch of times, and I get a bunch of cool images and animate those. So I probably did pretty near 1,000 still images for When LA Dies thing. And of the 1,000 still images, I probably made 200 movies. And of the 200 movies, I probably used about 40 or 50 of them, I think, maybe something like that. So there's that. Your other question, of course, is much more interesting and much more to the point. There is, it certainly looks like a conflict. They're just completely different domains. I know I missed a bunch of right angles and I just had a bunch of time. I was just gone. I've been so fascinated by this from the beginning, long before I got into political commentary. This was what I'd wanted to do, and I think that's been pretty much an open secret for the entire time I've been running the political commentary. But it's not that I've switched tracks or strategies or anything. It's just right now, Road Rider. It's just tremendously exciting for me, and just so you know, the authenticity thing is real, and has a great deal of power. But the thing that was so exciting to me about doing the LA burning thing is I've talked about this before. Is that doing what we're doing right now is like peak authenticity in terms of what I'm able to achieve anyway. And that has really grown and it is kind of the bread and butter of the internet. The Joe Rogan podcast is not shot on a games show soundstage, and it's not lit like a sitcom or lit like LA Law or something. It's just it's just a couple guys sitting across from each other in a room with decent lighting. So all of that authenticity stuff that I was talking about, I'm not going back on any of that. But what these new AI tools do for me, and I got a chance to do this with the CGI tools in DS for Dungeon, is it gives me so many more tools that I can use. The most important by far is music, by far. Road Riders mentioned Too Bad Afterburners were so powerful. I did about 200 of them. I know that sounds hard to believe, but I did about 200, 250 of them, firewalls and afterburners. And every now and then I think of something that's appropriate for that. But there comes a point when, it's just like I don't really know what to say in that format that I haven't said at some point already. The Yasuno AI is what Natasha uses for her channel for her meditation music. But music and conflict and the ability to, with characters, you can present both sides of the argument. You can do all of the things that go directly to the subconscious, and the most important, really thing that changed my mind about a lot of things was finding out that in 2024, the largest pro-Trump voting demographic was young people. That young people were the most pro-Trump group, and that the boomers were the most liberal group, and that in Canada, apparently all the boomers came out and voted for their communist overlords, frickin' boomers. Marisha says, the No Kings rally were 90% boomers, because they're still, they watch MSNBC, those old fogies. But what I'm trying to get at is, um, I'm going through a period of real excitement right now. So things are definitely out of balance. There's no question about that. I don't think I'm in any danger of just like disappearing into this rabbit hole. But um, there is the entire pitch, and the reason I'm in this AI space is that authenticity counts when you're giving people a message like this, when you're doing something like this, but it doesn't have sizzle appeal. It doesn't have scroll appeal. You know, it's not the kind of thing where you see. I mean, I've done some good thumbnails for right angles, and those have really improved the numbers of the right angles, but it's not visually arresting. And for generations that have been raised on, and we're talking 3 generations now, I would say at least, Gen Z, the millennials, and Gen X, um, and blockbuster movies, uh, the eye candy and the ability to arrest somebody's attention and hold on to it is really important. And so I don't want to sound like I'm backpedaling. If you can get people to listen to you, then the less, if you're talking first person singular, then the less artifice you put on it, the better it is. But I want to go after those. I want to go after those young people that are. What I told the people in at Heritage was, young people were the most pro-Trump demographic, and we didn't go after them. They just walked away from the other side and just kind of, just sort of wandered over to their fence and put their elbow over it. No one has told them what we stand for. No one's gone out there and shown a vision. And to me, that's what the colonies are. I mean, you see a strong father going out there. One of the I mentioned quite a long time ago, but this is a first season storyline in the homestead part of the colonies. Is they Jake asked to borrow this guy's mule. He's got some work he has to do up at the top of the hill and has to get some equipment up there, and the guy's 40 miles away or 50 miles away. He says, "Yeah, sure, no problem." He says, "Yeah, I can come get it in the rover, in the morning, or I could be there, 2.5 hours." He says, "No, I'll just send it over." So it's like a Boston Robotics thing, It's just a big, whatever they call their 4-legged doggy thing. And it's just a neat shot seeing the nighttime on this alien planet. It's pitch black, and just watching this thing go dunk 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 dunk, 80 miles. It's got an RTG. It's got a radiothermal generator in it, and it doesn't care. It's going to be generating that heat whether he uses it or not. So anyway, so the guy sends his robot over, and the next morning Jake and Will use it to get some equipment up a hill. And he wants to send the robot back, and he calls the guy, and he's not answering on the radio. So they decide to save wear and tear on the thing. So they load it into the rover, and they drive back to this other guy's house, and his hab module, and and the doors are open, and they go inside, and it's just a bloodbath. And somebody's come and murdered the entire family, and not just murdered them, it's just decorated the house with them, and so now Jake and Will have to go home and have to tell the girls that there are at least one, and almost certainly 2 or 3, if not more, murdering psychopaths out there. And she says, "What do we do?" And she wants to run, and he's not going to run. And he says, "If we run, where do we stop? We're just going to give this up." And what Jake says, and I think this makes a lot of sense, is I need to call Jim and Dave or whatever, and we need to go out there, and we need to find these guys before they find us, because these guys are professional killers, and if they encircle us, if they find us before we find them, then they're going to murder us. and I'm not going to let that happen. So the only chance we have against people who kill for a living is to catch them sleeping. We've got to ambush them, and when we find them, we have to shoot them and put them down like dogs. Ideally, in a perfect world, we'll be able to murder them in their sleep. And because we don't get to call 911. And so that that aspect of watching fathers go out the door into the night, with shotguns or whatever the case may be, while you and mom and your sister get in the Rover and head in the other direction, that's a that's an image that I can't reproduce here, doing what I do in this chair, and I can't reproduce the music that goes with it. I can't reproduce any of that, and it's just heroism, and when you see a father say goodbye to his kids and his wife, realizing there's an excellent chance he's not going to come back from this, but he's not only willing to do this, he's happy to do it. He goes out there and they find these guys and they just plain murder them. I haven't really opened up the details of it yet, but I kind of think that what they'll probably do is set up his house as a trap, and they'll camp up in the hills out there, and they'll wait for these guys to show up, and they show up, and then when they're standing around, you want to have you kind of you'd kind of like to have the adventure of a gunfight, but I think the point is better if Jake just says now, and they just plain drop them like hogs, drop them, and one guy's wounded, and all the rest of this, like, nope, goodbye, boom to the head, and this is for what's his name, and they take the bodies out way out someplace, and then they don't talk about it ever again, and it's done. And don't worry, Lady Jane, it hasn't happened yet, and I'm not 100% sure it's going to happen. Maybe he'll have a near miss. Lady Jane says it's so sad that Will dies. Well, it's a plot device that we may or may not use. It's not going to happen right away, and I'll tell you that. Don't talk about the way they just ambush these guys. And see, this is the kind of thing that I really want to just rub in. It's like I really, really want to rub this in. It's like, oh well, they didn't give those murderers a second chance. John Pershing beat me to it. For God's sakes, don't fight fair. They just ambushed them and shot them in the back while they were milling around. Yes. Han shot first. If these guys didn't want to get shot, they shouldn't have been murdering people out in the colonies. So I really, really like the idea that there is no gunfight, there is no drama. These guys are they're behind rocks. They've got high-powered rifles. They see these banditos down there. And you can do that great trick, which I remember from the Wild Wild West of all things, where you've got some kind of thing moving around inside the house, so they think that there's people in there, and then they circle the Habs, and they're going to go in there and murder them like they did the last family or two families or whatever. And they find out that there's nobody there, and they're just standing there talking or having a conversation. He says now, and they just all just go down, and the wounded are just shot, and they're not even like anything you want to say or anything. No, they're just put down. Lady Janie says, worried of what would happen to Angel Lisa if Will died. Well, here's the thing, Janie. First of all, it sounds like I've got people hooked already, so there's that. And this is life. It does break her, and she's never the same afterwards. It's not that she's never happy, but she's never the same. This is what happens in life. This is how life works. Sometimes things like this happen, and that's real storytelling. That's story. It is sad. Sadness is a huge part of human existence, and it's okay. You know, it's okay. There's no how can you be like sad in Discovery, or like the Star Trek Discovery, or how can you be sad in Indiana Jones, part 7 or 8, if there's no stakes there, you know? When Spock died in Wrath of Khan, that was peak Star Trek. That moment was it. That was the pinnacle of all of this, and they kind of cheated by bringing him back, and I thought that was cheap. I'll tell you what else was cheap, real cheap, was when in an otherwise flawless movie, in my opinion. Was when in Schindler's List all the women went into the gas chamber and they were saved at the last minute. No, they weren't. No one was ever in the gas chambers and then were saved at the last minute. That was cheap. He wanted to show the terror of what it was like to be in there. And then it turns out no, turns out that Schindler saved them or whatever. That was just, they would do that. They would cycle those things at Treblinka. They would cycle 1,200 people transports. They, on a busy day, they'd do 6 of those. And he tried to have it both ways. And my point is, the cavalry doesn't come over the hill and rescue them. John Pershing says peak cheap is the whole multiverse BS. Yes, because in the multiverse, dying doesn't mean anything anymore. The character died. Well, so what? They just died in this universe. We'll see them again. You can't kill. If you can't lose value, if you can't lose close people, then you've got nothing. And that's why in the golden age of TV, which was really early 2000s, late 90s, late 90s, started with The Sopranos. Deadwood was right in the middle there. Walking Dead is in there. No, I'm not a fan of Search for Spock. When a main character gets killed, when a main character gets killed from a dramatic point of view, yes, Quibo, it means that anybody can get killed. So people are talking about Gandalf. Yes, well, Gandalf kind of died and came back as a different person, but Boromir died. Boromir died. Theoden died. They took losses, and Rick Sanchez says there's no stakes with the multiverse. There are no stakes. You're immortal, and it's just bad. Yeah, Gandalf. I don't have any problem with Gandalf being resurrected because he was Maya, and yeah, and Eric says another cheap trick that Christopher Reeve Superman films lost any stakes after Supes went back to fix things. Yes. So what they wanted was, again, in an otherwise excellent movie, but in the only one that really counts it was the first one, right? So what the filmmakers want, what Richard Donner wants is Richard Donner wants the emotional moment of having Superman watch Lois Lane die because he wants that in there. But basically, what he also has to do is he can't let her die. So Superman flies around and causes the Earth to rotate in a different direction, and time reverses. And so now that you've done that, why even make Superman 2? Anything bad that happens ever in Superman 2, all Superman has to do is just go around and fly around the Earth backwards, and the problem solved. It's the same kind of thing with that admittedly spectacular special effect in The Last Jedi when Admiral what's her name goes into hyperdrive and destroys the entire fleet with one thing. But now you've got the ultimate weapon. Just put a hyperdrive on a brick, turn it on. Yeah, Admiral Holdo. Just turn it on and just take out ships. They do this so often. They'll come up with a something I think is interesting for one episode, and it completely sabotages the entire series. Just not going to do it, man. People die, they die, and that's the way it is. They didn't kill off a lot of regulars on Deadwood, but one or two, Now, the person who should have, the Marisha said they should have given the suicide mission to Poe. No, the person who should have done it was Leia. She'd already died for no reason. She died for no reason. She just happened to be standing in the wrong place when the shields or the windows get blown out. She flies out into space and comes flying back like Space Mary Poppins. She's already dead. It should have gone either to Leia or Admiral Akbar. He was an established character. It's a trap. We knew who he was. He just gets sucked out of the bridge when the thing explodes. But you never hear from him again. The guy was a freaking legend. So they robbed Flynn of a glorious death. They rob Han Solo. Han Solo dies a miserable, pathetic. Died on a sidewalk in a place. They were terrible. They were terrible. And when I look at and I enjoyed the Star Trek reboots, and I liked the first one and the second one. I didn't even see the third one. There's a Star Trek movie that I didn't even go see because once I saw them jumping motorcycles, I still have yet to see that third J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie, which is inconceivable that I just have no interest in it at all. But when you look at J.J. Abrams with Star Trek and Star Wars, you realize all he does is just remake. He just remakes the movies with better effects, worse writing, worse acting, worse characters, but better effects. He just remakes them. It is inconceivable. Han Solo is trying to convince his son to the light side. Well, Han Solo was a hero, and Han Solo. Quibo says Han was a father. Yes, but we never got to see him as a father. Last time we saw him, he was a rogue. We never got to see him with his kid. We never got any backstory. Now we're told he's a father, and you're the father of this guy. Okay, and so he's trying to be a good father, but Han was a galactic hero. Han Solo should have destroyed the Starkiller base. Han Solo should have taken the Millennium Falcon and run it right down the tubes of the Starkiller base. If we're going to repeat everything again, that's a kind of that death has meaning and consequence and heroism worthy of Han Solo. Instead of just getting stabbed in the front by a some emo whatever. It's just a waste. That's just a real waste, I thought. And J.J. Abrams is just a hack. Well, let's see what we got here. I'm running out of steam pretty quick here. That's Road Rider. Yeah, Marusha Dark again. I'm not going to do a double. Sorry. All right. So we're here's what I'm going to do. Um, uh, Jacob, I'm gonna skip your question here just because I don't have the voice left for it, and Marusha, I'm not gonna do a double. So I think we're gonna do Bob Neef, and I think we're gonna call it a night. Um, Bob Neef, from a pop culture perspective, does the No Kings protest make sense? No, it's the stupidest name ever. They've called Trump a Nazi, but until now I don't anyone refer to him as a king. Seems like an odd choice of slogans. Yeah, it's uh, uh, no kings. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'm with you on that. He's one of those, democratically elected kings that serve for 4 years, and have limited constitutional powers. One of those kings. Just weak tea, man. It's just weak sauce. The whole thing was just weak. And they're saying, oh, so 5 million people turned out. Yeah, 5 million people turned out, maybe, in 50 places, or 100, and they look like a really popular garage sale was going on. If you when you had the Million Man March or whatever, or the Women's March or whatever, you had 1 million people in one place. That's one thing, but to say there are 5 million people protested, well, okay. If I had a pencil, I'm sure I could work this out on my own. 5 million people are out there protesting. Historic. There's never been protests like that before. That's that's less than 1% of the population. Way less. Way less. Congratulations. You've got 99 to 1. Um, Logan Darklighter there for a super chat says, I actually hate the second of the 3 JJ Star Trek films. Yeah, me too. But I would actually recommend the third because the characters were pretty much back almost to original series standards. But it's a dumb movie. It's a fun dumb movie. Okay. Um, yeah. And you have J.J. Abrams to blame for putting the Enterprise, not just the Enterprise, for putting Star Trek vessels into wormholes. They don't travel through wormholes, but now they do, I guess. And this, that kind of stopping and starting, that's Star Wars. If you want to make Star Wars, make Star Wars. See it now in Star Trek. It looks really cool. No, it doesn't. It doesn't look cool. Ships don't do that. Ships accelerate and ships decelerate. Ay, caramba, just enough to make the ganglia twitch. Strange New World Season 3 is coming. I think it's Strange New World Season 5 is coming, isn't it? I don't know. In any event, was that a Vandenberg launch that happened while we were here chatting? Visible right out that window there. Right out that window. Where did I put that? Groovy little app. They got a notification that something was a flying. Where did I put that thing? Hang on. Come on, baby. Where are you, little rocket? There it is. Yeah, T plus 5 minutes. So 5 minutes ago, just right out the window, I didn't read either of Marusha's questions. I thought I got one of them. I'll do one of them, obviously. Okay. Marusha Dark, and I think this will be it for the night. Um, in a previous episode, you mentioned spirit science as the topic. You mentioned Jason Paget and quantum information holography, which you plan to use as your basis for your FTL drive. One thing I noticed immediately from his imagery is a pattern known in New Age occult circles as the flower of life, one of the most ancient and universal spiritual symbols known to mankind. A quick Google search revealed that apparently Paget uses this with deliberate awareness to tie his mathematical theory of geometric unity. And here's it. Yes. Yeah, sacred geometry, the repeating patterns, the golden ratio and the golden spiral and all of these other things that are built into all of this stuff. There are resonances in planetary orbits, for example. If you look down on the solar system and you plot the orbits of the planets, they form different flower-like shapes. So yeah, there's something built into nature along these lines. According to Gemini, he sees the flower's life as a Planck lattice or structure of space-time where each small equilateral triangle represents a Planck length, the smallest measurable unit of space-time. That's apparently a Planck distance is the amount of area, is the amount of space it takes for a photon of light moving at the speed of light to cross a hydrogen nucleus. So it's a pretty tiny little thing. And it doesn't get smaller than that. You cannot subdivide Planck length, and you can't subdivide that time period. The universe doesn't flow; it ticks. There is a clock. There's a moment, and then there's another moment, but there's nothing between those two moments. You would think that you could divide that forever, but you can't. That's why it's a quantum. It's a packet. Given how central it is to a system, I was wondering how much do you know about the sacred symbol and whether you'd consider it relevant to the colonies enough to warrant a deeper dive. I do. I do. For instance, since you have groups like Gene Splicers already planned, maybe you could have a religious faction that goes in the opposite direction, develops a star-struck cult-like worship of FTL drives similar to the Jobsists from Iron Sky who worship Apple products. Food for thought. Yes. I think so. Sacred geometry is there are undeniable repeating patterns in nature. The shells, the spiral that are formed by the shells of a nautilus. The golden ratio, which just continually keeps subdividing and so on. And frankly, one of the most remarkable things is if you look at fractals and the Mandelbrot set. When fractal mathematics started coming out, you find that and this is the very first generation of computer graphics, you find that fractals were necessary to draw realistic landscapes and realistic clouds. That fractals are which look like just mathematical expression, but they're built into the structure of the universe, which is a fairly compelling argument for design and a fairly compelling argument for simulation theory. I mean, these patterns don't have to be there, and not only do they not have to be there, they don't have to be beautiful. And what's even more interesting is, how do we know what is beautiful? Why do these patterns that occur in nature have an emotional effect on us? I saw something on Richard Dawkins just a couple days ago, where somebody was interviewing him and said, well, what would it take to convince you of God? And Hawkins said, well, I suppose if the skies opened and a man with with flowing white beard were to descend from the clouds, and he would speak and his voice would boom around the planet. And then Hawkins said, but you know what? If I saw that, I would think the most likely case is that of having a hallucination. And so what Hawkins basically says is there is no evidence There is no evidence that could convince me I'm wrong. You can't. That any. I thought it was a profound point that the person was making. Was that what would it take? And he tells him what it would take, and then he realizes, no, I still wouldn't believe that. So there comes to the point where you realize that you're dealing with actually religious, belief. That kind of certainty is not science. And these scientists who pride themselves on being so unemotional and intellectually neutral, you're not. That's why we have science. That's why it's here. Science is designed to eliminate human bias as much as possible, but it doesn't ever completely eliminate it. It eliminates it as much as possible and has allowed us to do some wonderful, wonderful things. But science is not philosophy. It's not a worldview. I say this again. I believe in science. It's like I say, you believe in hammers or you believe in scalpels. It's a tool. It's a tool. Risha says, share the image with the rest of the class. Okay, why not? Here you go. Yeah, you get the basic idea here. Hang on there, YouTube. So these are some of the repeating patterns that occurred, or at least are being identified by the person in question here. Come on. Yeah, so, and some of these things say vector equilibrium and 64 tetrahedron and so on, but it's what it is. It's a series of ratios. Anybody who ever played with Spyrograph knows how just having different gears can create amazing patterns. I didn't have the patience for Spyrograph. I would always start the Spyrograph and I'd get some of the easy ones done, and then when it came time to start getting into the intricate ones, I would just be too much of a hurry and I'd just skip a gear and I would ruin the Spyrograph. But Spyrograph was really, really cool. That was it was just like just about everything else back then. It was really educational. You learned something from Spyrograph. I guess I have to go find a picture of Spyrograph now to show degenerate non-boomers here. Hang on a second. So they still sell it, apparently. Yeah, so basically it was a set of different gears, and here, that's YouTube, I don't want YouTube. And you would put a pen in any one of these holes and run it around the gears, and you would get designs like this. And all you had to do was just change which gears you put in what order. Don't be like this. Oh, man. I don't know. I'm working on it, YouTube. I can't get it into YouTube. Sorry. You could just Google Spyrograph. Yeah, and I don't know why it won't. Oh, because it's a different image, different type. My love for this community knows no bounds. Hang on a second. fix this problem right quick. There you go. Yeah, you can make these incredible designs. You change the ink colors, and you get these really, really cool effects. But you had to have patience, and that wasn't my forte, or fort, I believe, actually. I believe that is actually not. I think that's one of those things that people get wrong, like stomping grounds instead of stamping grounds. These are my old stamping grounds. I'm chomping at the bit. No, you're champing at the bit. You're champing at the bit to get to your old stamping grounds, because that's where because riding horses are your fort. Forte apparently is a musical term. It's supposed to be your fort. You say that, of course, and everybody thinks you're an idiot. Of course, it's not a problem for me, because I think we've pretty much settled that already. It's fort, yeah. You never hear anybody say that in conversation, though, you know. Oh, that's not really my fort. People will laugh at you. Oh, you idiot. It's forte. No, you idiot, it's fort. Those are fun moments. Anyway, yeah, I think we'll go out on the Spyrograph. What are we? We're not at a 3-hour tour yet, but we're at a 2-hour and 36-minute tour, which is not a bad tour. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Oh, I know what we can do. We can before I forget, I'll tell you my little story about the my big adventure at Little Tony's. Last night when I was recovering from my what do you want to call it? Dark cloud visitation. I just in a really low mood. What the hell am I looking for? Oh, here we go. Yeah, Big Trouble at Little Tony's. So there's a restaurant, Italian restaurant in the valley here, called Little Tony's, and I've been going to that restaurant for 37 years. It's across the street from where I first lived when I first came to LA. I stayed with my friend Fritz for about 3 weeks, and so we were at Little Tony's, and Natasha had to go get something out of the car. And all of a sudden, so there's a big open area for the restroom, and then there's a little kind of a curb, and then there's a bar that is hidden from the dining room. It's in the back and around the corner. So Natasha goes out to the car, and I can see her through the window, so it's not like I'm too worried about that. And all of a sudden, I start hearing this screaming, like, ah, ah, really, really howling. And it was a man. He was just howling. He made, I thought that he was being skinned alive. And so some of the staff started heading over that way, and I get up out of the booth because I'm a Boy Scout, you know, and I go walking over there, and there's a guy on the floor, and a couple of knocked over bar stools, and the guy is howling, just howling. He hit me. This guy hit me. He knocked me to the ground. I'm on the ground. I've broken my ribs. I can barely breathe. You know, and I walk in there, and there's mostly staff back there behind me, waiters and waitresses and a lot of younger people, and they're standing there. And so now first thing I know, I'm at the front of the line here. I'm in front of the crowd, and at the end of the bar is a Mexican guy wearing a Dodgers shirt, and he says, and he's sitting next to his girlfriend. And he says, yeah, I hit him. Yeah, I knocked him down. You can't believe some of the shit he was talking about. He was just saying the most vile things ever imaginable. And then he's mocking him. He's mocking him. And so the guy who's on the ground gets up, and he starts heading towards the guy who just knocked him down. So I just said, no, come with me. So I took him out of that room to keep those two guys separate. And everybody's looking around. Nobody really knows what to do, and I said, call 911 and get the police here quick. So the person who ends up actually getting through on 911 was the guy who was actually injured. Now he's completely uh, irrational. He's out of it. Um, so he's not able to get him. Um, he's not really able to get him. He's a little hysterical, and so I got him sitting down. I go back, and uh, and about 2 3 minutes later, the guy who openly admitted that he hit this guy, he has paid his bill and he's walking out the front door. And then the paramedics arrived. The paramedics were there within 2 or 3 minutes of the call, and the police were there within 4 or 5. And so I'm watching this guy going out the door, and I'm saying, he's getting away, you know. Um, and so the police arrive, and I step outside, and the guy's girlfriend comes back in the restaurant. She apparently forgot something. And I said to the police, I said, you need to detain this person because this is this is the girlfriend of the guy who assaulted this guy. And the cops were saying, did you see the assault? I said, no, but I was the first person pretty much on the scene, and I saw the guy who did the assault admit that he assaulted him. And so the woman starts coming out, and the cop says, so do you have anything to do with this? I said, no. I said, no, it's her boyfriend. And she says, I don't have a boyfriend. And she just keeps walking. And I think, okay, there he goes. And sure enough, the cops were talking with this guy, and he's saying you got to stop him, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, and it was just one of those things. And the waiter said, sorry, this kind of thing happens probably about once a month. It's a good neighborhood. I bet this happens pretty much every night or every other night in some restaurants. And anyway, I just kind of just stepped in there, and nobody seems to know what to do, and it's never been a problem for me. So I was actually I was a little pissed off that they got away. The guy who went down looks like I wouldn't be at all surprised if he had in fact said some genuinely repulsive things. This guy was a strange dude, man. He really was. But you don't get to walk up and just punch somebody, knock them out of their bar stool, land them on the ground, and I'm generally a big fan of the fighting words defense, but those are your actions, and So I'm just watching him just walk away and get away with it, and I don't I felt like cheated, but it wasn't like it was a fight. You know what I mean? It wasn't like there were two guys standing there squaring off, and neither one of them's backing down. This guy just got up and walked, 3 bar stools down there, and just cold clocked the guy. Just knocked him out. And anyway, Natasha said, because I'd coming off a really, 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 really bad 2 days. Really, 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 really bad 2 days. And I was like, all right, and I was like, I wasn't feeling happy, but I was feeling much better. And she pointed that out to me, she said, you just seem like you're suddenly like charged up. I said, I don't know, honey, I'm just built for moments like this. I just feel like I'm just built for this. I don't like injustice, and I don't like and I don't like I understand inaction. I just don't like it. I've been thinking about, you see a lot of these. I'm a vigilante. Yeah, that's right. I'm a citizen, is what I am, and you see this shoplifting epidemic that's going on, and they know, the shoplifters know, and Everybody knows, all of us together know, that the police are not going to get there before they get out the door with the goods. Right? And it's not subtle. It's not like I'm tucking this in here. There's just people going into like Targets now, and they're opening garbage bags and they're just loading shoes and clothes, slinging these sacks of loot over their shoulders and just marching out the door. And I've seen guys. I've seen like one guy. One guy will go to the Apple store and just rip all of these phones off of the little, anti-theft cables, that they've got. They're anti-shoplifting cables, but they're not assault cables. Apparently, the phones are useless, but I'm sure they'll get something for them. Anyway, I saw this thing with this one kid came in, and he's just ripping out these iPhones and stuffing them in his pants. He took like 30 of them, 25 or 30 of them, and I'm watching this and I'm thinking, honest to God, I do not think I could just stand there and watch that. I just don't think I could do it. I just don't think I could stand there and watch him do it in front of me like that. And I realized that's what it's going to take to get society back into a case of law and order. Is when the criminals. It's not that they fear the police, because they know the police are not going to get there in time. But they should feel like they're going to get their ass handed to them by 5 or 6 people if they do something like that. So I don't know. P7 2017 says, watched one videos where a shopper stopped the thief, held onto his cart, and wouldn't let him have it. Yeah. But and then there's the other side of the argument, which is, is it get stabbed or something? And that led me to think, well, no, I don't want to get stabbed, which is why I should be armed. Which is why I should be armed at all times, And I don't know. But just watching people just walk out with absolute impunity and have everybody else just stand there. I'd expect the Apple employees to stand there because they're soy-based organisms. But to just do nothing, and if you were to, let's just say you were to tackle this guy, you'd probably go to jail for assault, at least in this state. I saw something where these 3 16-year-olds went to this guy's house and kicked his door in, and had a gun and apparently fired first, and he shot back at them and killed all 3 of them, and the families are suing him and they want him to go to jail for murder. They said he didn't have to use lethal force like that, and I just want to tear my my hair out. So yes, I will go out and I will be I'll be a superhero. So yes, no capes, cloaks. Yeah, I should come back to America. Yeah, I don't know. I have this conversation all the time, and it's so, I don't know. So it's a lot of work and a lot of money, but yeah. Karen and Quinlan died because people heard their screams, but later admitted in interviews that they didn't want to get involved. I was waiting for the police to come and interview me, because if they had held on to the guy or the girlfriend, I was standing right there. I mean, both the guy and the girlfriend could see that I was talking to the cops and pointing to them. So you know what? I'm involved now, and it's not like I did this from the shadows or called this in. I mean, I was saying, you need to detain this person. Yes, this one who's walking away. What about we want to talk to you about your boyfriend. I don't have a boyfriend. And off she goes. And I thought, it's not a zero chance these guys are going to come around the corner again and and go looking for the Boy Scout. But yeah, I mean, when I got up there and got involved with this, would I be prepared to go to court? Yes, of course I'd be prepared to go to court, and I would tell the exact truth. Did you see the assault? I did not. I heard the man screaming, and I went into the bar. And what happened next? The guy at the end of the bar said, yes, I hit him. I knocked him down. He was talking all kinds of shit about me, and you couldn't believe the vile things he was saying. But yes, he owned up to it right away. And anything you'd like to add? Nope. I did not witness the assault. I witnessed the person take credit for the assault. Next witness. But if more people did that, then there wouldn't be so much of this nonsense, So anyway, there you go. Yeah, my alter ego. I need to have a disguise. I don't know what I need. Some kind of disguise. I should be. I know. I will be. I will be. I know who I'll be. Hang on. I will be the kind of hero that Los Angeles needs, ladies and gentlemen. This is what my city needs. I will become the Ratfink. That'd be awesome to be the Ratfink. Ratfink. And that's my bitchin' Camaro. Ratfink. Ratfink. That's epic. Okay, well, Ratfink has had enough Ratfinking, and we got a 3-hour tour out of it anyway. We're at 2:55, and by the time I'm finished with my goodbyes and all the rest of that, we're probably time to go home. Ratfink. I love it. Okay, Ratfink, it's time for you to go. Time for you to go, Ratfink. Time to say goodbye, Ratfink. All right. Can I save the link from the second question and watch it? Yes, let me have a look. Seems reasonable. Where did I put those questions? Did I close that link? I couldn't have closed it. Would I? Did I? Hang on. I will do it. I will do it. Go all the way back to available.com. Go all the way back to the forums. Go all the way back to the questions. Flower of Life question, and then it's the short sci-fi film I watched back in Uncanny Valley. Okay, I'll take a look. Science fiction-y, 1.5 million views. Sweet. All right, it's in my list now. In my history. Okay, so you probably know by now the show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, whose numbers I wish to grow in the near future, and we're waiting for the plugin and all the rest of it. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us, and appreciate all the goodwill and all of the kind words and all the rest of it. And that's our members. So we'll see you on Thursday, and we'll say goodnight to our friends on YouTube first. So thank you for joining us, YouTube. We'll see you Thursday night for your stress-free lounge. And until then, do the things that you're supposed to do and don't do the other things.